as citizens, we are asking for the fundamental right of clean air and clean water. And then was the other subsequent things about actually managing the waste and things like that. So right then there was a basic understanding that if we don't deal with our waste, we are dealing with very fundamental issues of clean air and clean water. Mandur and Mavallipura, for those of you who have reported on it, will know that these were traditionally grape growing, mango growing areas, and these destroyed the ecosystems because they were close to areas where there was waste dumped in very large quantities and the water got polluted, and it is no more an agricultural land in and around those areas. And that when you throw away, it comes back to bite you in the form of toxicity, in the form of bad water and all of that. The other big fallout that we had for unmanaged waste, which we were able to draw the connection out, was to do with transportation. Long distance transportation, which obviously it's a different thing that there is a mafia which is not allowing it, but we were looking at it more from the environment fallout, where long distance transportation is unnecessary. Why should we put 60% of our organic vegetable, which largely contains water, take it from point A to Dodbalapur, which is 70 kilometers away, then dump it there, where there is a reduction in volume mass. So it looked like a huge waste of money. And also the point that we wanted to highlight, and I think which we got through with the Lok Adalat, was that it was transportation, pollution caused by the transportation. And of course, those of you who have followed your little auto tippers and the very bad quality vehicles that you see on the streets, I don't know what standards they conform to. And the emission quality is deadly in all of those vehicles. So that is another smaller issue. So the idea was to contain the number of vehicles that we use to actually transport waste and start looking at localized, decentralized processing so that we stop this transportation at one level. And we of course pursued it from the angle of segregation at source, making it mandatory, making sure that different streams of waste hit different destinations. But these were all the consequences of that. Mitigation measures in terms of the number of vehicles. We are intending to set those kind of targets where wards are able to start managing waste. You bring down the number of vehicles that will take out this waste out of your area. During the season between November and March, you see the people, the staff, Paurakarmikas and the sanitation staff struggling with stuffing dry leaf into vehicles, which falls back on them. And they're taking this dry leaf out of their wards into someplace else and dropping it. That is one. The second thing is plastic and paper. The effort to contain this huge volume of plastic and paper into vehicles, take it out somewhere, either it goes into a land dump where it gets sorted out, or it just goes into a landfill where it permanently goes into the soil. So the idea was that the Lok Adalat had to recognize that we wanted to do resource recovery of this material.
The other dimension that was very important was the informal waste sector. So there were a lot of people working outside the municipality. So there is this economist quote which says solid waste has three outlets. One is the formal collection, one is the informal collection, and one is the waste that is lying on the road. So the informal collection was something that was often ignored, though there are enough reports which talk about the recycling cost-benefit analysis for the city. And in a study that we did in 2013, we realized that about 15,000 waste pickers were actually were retrieving about 1,050 tons of waste and saving the municipality about 83 crores. So 1,050 tons of the official statistics that the BBMP claims, which is about 3,500, though rough estimate says it's more than 5,000 to 6,000. So 1,050 tons was not accounted for in any documents at all. So that was a saving for the municipality.
Once we started recovering the dry waste, then again the fundamental aspect is diversion from landfill. So our single biggest bane for the city has been the setting up of these multiple landfill and land dump. We're literally almost surrounded like the outer ring road. We are kind of surrounded by these various dump yards that the city, the BBMP has set up over a period of time. in and around our city. And the biggest one, of course, in recent times has been the Mandur, and of course it reached the point of collapse where all of you will know, since you'll have tracked it, that it had to be shut down. And I think the Pollution Control Board taking the action for actually shutting down the landfill was accumulation of events because of the Lok Adalat starting to put pressure on this whole unmanaged waste, and the fact that the landfill communities also started protesting about the fact that there was a clear consequence that they were facing because of the smell and because of the ecosystem destruction, because of the water leachate and all of that. So the Pollution Control Board actually shut down the landfill, which I think was the first time a regulatory body actually did what they're supposed to do, which is take action. Identifying a bulk generator to manage their own waste is something also very unique to Bangalore. If you take large markets, if you take large malls, supermarkets, large residential gated communities, the planning today requires them to have enough space, let's say, to park 4,000 cars. But why are they not able to allocate, the question that was asked at that point is, why are they not able to allocate that small incremental amount of space to manage their waste on site so that the waste doesn't have to be taken out? Fortunately, it was looked into, and laws are there now in place. 2006 Pollution Control Board came up with a regulation which needed all large communities to manage their own waste on site. So there has been immediate reduction in the number of vehicles that move material from point A to point B, and a lot of it gets managed in situ, what we call it as in situ management. During this time, the markets also, there have been some pilots which we have done in terms of actually setting up aerobic composting units at the site itself. City market, unfortunately, there are number of, there is a biomethanation plant, there is a aerobic composting plant, but because of various other forces in place, you know, this and the vested interest in keeping this transportation going, we've not been entirely able to break that. But the end point is to see to it that we are able to break the transportation lobby and actually have on-site management of the resources. So for the first time, the city, Bangalore, has identified the third stream of waste, which is what they call very pompously domestic hazardous waste, which is a combination of e-waste, that is tubelights, CFLs, paints, pesticides, chemicals, and a component of this sanitary waste, which is basically sanitary pads, diapers, condoms, you know, diabetes, home patients who throw away medical waste, that kind of thing. So this was another chunk. So when the city has basically moved into a concept of identifying that the waste generated cannot be managed in one place, it has to go to various destinations. The minute you fix the destinations and make sure that the waste goes into these places, you're ensuring that it gets managed at some point. There is no outside dumping, and therefore there is no mixed emissions and release into the air. That was a fundamental concept of this whole waste management exercise. Like I said, driven by the need for clean air and clean water. When we took sanitary waste, it's much more complicated. The composition of the sanitary pad, though it is meant to, it's a hygiene product and therefore has to satisfy those requirements. It's also about non-leak, leak-proof, all of that. So basically the idea was to stop the incineration because it's such a horrific, toxic emission into the air. And worse, the government has come up with these small school incinerators, which they believe are a solution to the problem, by trying and inserting these what do they call it? It's a single, you know, it's like the size of a microwave oven, and can be installed in every school. And when we got emission tests done from these, it emits carbon monoxide. And all of you know that's a colorless, odorless emission. And we have all our schoolgirls breathing into them, and it causes queasiness, giddiness, vomiting, and all of that, which they would have attributed to the menstruation cycle, and not to the fact that they were near these things which were incinerating and causing that toxic emission. And then the big one is the bulk burning, which is the waste to energy. So those products which cannot be managed in any other way, the BBMP and every other government has this wonderful, the ad that was there, no? Fill it, shut it, forget it. It's very much like that. The waste to energy is the solution to their problems. Whatever you can't manage, take it, push it into the waste to energy plant, shut it and forget it. Something will happen, some emissions will happen. We don't have to worry about it. We can't see it, and what we can't see, we don't worry about. But literally the waste to energy is a ticking, simply because there isn't enough regulation around it, and our regulatory authorities are not doing what they need to do, which is tighter and stricter regulations. The more important thing of street sweeping. So you'll know that Parakarmikas bend over, they use handheld brooms, they're sweeping, the dust is coming straight into their face, they're not adequately protected, and the dust is then made into a small mound and it is left there. The vehicles pass by and the whole thing again goes back into the street. So we've tried to, the decibel level for asking for mechanical sweepers has been going up. We've been talking about it. Street sweeping, leaf management, where there are schedules of fines which have been released where you can be penalized for burning a leaf and you're not allowed to do it. But all of us see fires burning everywhere in the mornings when we go. People, the fastest way of dealing with a mound of dry leaf is setting it on fire. So there has to be a lot more awareness in terms of managing leaf and construction debris, which is a very, very unregulated area, and almost nothing has been done in that area today in the city.